Hello, it's me. It's time to go. Community conversations start the show. Hmm. Yeah, still working on that theme song. Anyway, if you're just tuning in, welcome. It is 7 o'clock, August 9th, Tuesday, August 9th, 7 to 1 p.m. on the East Coast. If you're here, say hi. Let us know where you're from. Smash the like, please. Smash the like. I like it. Hi, Deirdre. Tonight, hey, Beth Carducci. So let's see. Tonight we should do, while we're waiting, favorite flavor gum. Favorite flavor gum. Does anybody chew gum anymore? Is that not a thing? Grace from Neptune. Hi, Grace. Dave, good to see you. Valencia. Liz Smith from PTC. Hi, Mom. EB. Eric from Houston. Can't stay long this time. That's okay. We'll take you for as long as you can stay. Hey, Lynn. So yeah, favorite flavor gum, and just let us know. Bubble gum, that's a place to start. Cinnamon, Trident cinnamon was always a go-to for me. It was so cool to see everyone's faces at the conference. If you were there, I know we talked a little bit about that in the last live town hall with all the advocates, but it's been a minute since community conversation. So excited to be back. Excited that you're here. We'll get started in another 15, 20 seconds. So if you're just joining us, welcome, welcome. Hope you're all well. And if you're just joining us, we're name, where you're from, and favorite flavor bubblegum. I used to like Hubba Bubba Banana Split, and it was like a super treat for me because I couldn't have gum with sugar in it because it was a parent mom rule, which in retrospect seems stupid because when you get old enough to realize that you're going to lose your baby teeth anyway, it's like, why did I have to eat sugar free? If I'm not even keeping these teeth. Like I technically didn't ever need to brush them ever. So maybe I did because anyway. So yeah, when I could get the banana split Hubba Bubba, it was good. It was good. Juicy fruit was great, but like the flavor died. It was like the animal. What is that? Stripes, lion stripes, tiger stripes. Ooh, spearmint. Not with you, Anna. Wintergreen and spearmint were like my least favorite flavors. All right, let's get rolling. Hope everyone is doing great tonight. As you come in, sit back, relax. This hour is about you. So my name is Ethan Smith. I'm a national advocate for the International OCD Foundation, which simply means I have OCD and I'm still talking about it. We're still here. This community conversation is intended to serve as educational content. It is not intended to replace therapy. For treatment-related questions, please be sure to work with your local provider or contact a local clinician. The International OCD Foundation is not a crisis hotline. It should not be used if you're in distress or feel unsafe. If you're in a crisis or you're ever feeling suicidal or unsafe, please go to your local emergency room, call 911, or call the suicide prevention hotline at 800-273-8255. Yes, Fruit Strike gum with zebra. Thank you. And grape was delicious. I too. As always, we want to be respectful and kind of others. We want to create a safe space as possible, even though this is important to remind you that it is a public space that is being recorded on various social platforms. So it's for all to see. Keep that in mind as you divulge and share your own stories and truths with us. But with that, we try to create a safe space and want to be as kind and respectful to others as possible. With that, let us begin. Okay, so Beth remembers Hubba Bubba. Yeah, I do too. I actually looked on the shelf the other day. I was at the grocery store and I didn't see it. It was like Trident, double. Wow, yeah, Wrigley's, and then a few other new flavor. All the old school flavors are gone. Remember a Big League Chew, Eric? Do you remember that Big League Chew? In the pouches. Yeah, they're all kinds of good stuff. Hi, Ashley. New mouth? Are you asking me if I have a new mouth or is that a gum? Gum is too expensive. Everything is too expensive now. Inflation. That's a sad day when gum is too expensive. Anyway, how's everyone doing tonight? I have things to talk about. It's been about a month since I've seen you all last, but as always, I love for y'all to drive the conversation. So let me know if there's anything on your mind, how you're doing, how you're feeling. For those of you who went to the conference, post-conference, How's the end of your summer? Are you starting school, new jobs, old jobs? Let me know how you're feeling. Oh, when I was tripping of your tongue doing housekeeping rules. Yeah, I trip over my tongue. No, I need a new mouth. That is valid. And Eric does remember Big League Chew. Awesome. So I'll let people kind of weigh in. I'm doing okay. Life is continuing to have full of ups and downs. The summer is proving to be challenging, I think, for me and my own OCD and anxiety. But I think we're going about it as gracefully as we possibly can. And to be quite honest with you, it's not important that we're all that graceful. Is it? It can be a little messy, but as long as we're doing value driven and important things, then that's what matters. And so definitely, for the most part, haven't missed a beat this summer. Although, having to work a little bit harder to have good days. But that's okay. That's part of I think that's part of the contract that we didn't ask to sign, but here we are. So all in all, a little to complain about in that regard, just doing the best I can, and little wins. Hey, Michael Schramm, I know I've seen your posts about the conference. Yeah, I know. It was a great time. So juicy fruit. I know juicy fruit was so good for those first 3 minutes in class, and then you're sit there, stuck there. You're right. I need a new mouth, Beth. I'm struggling today. So as always, please feel free to start the conversation. Comments, questions, concerns, thoughts. What's on your mind? If not, I will launch into a story that may not ever end. So. Oh yeah, it was for kids who wanted to choose something like the big leaguers did. Even though they moved away from tobacco toward things like sunflower seeds now. That's right. That's right. So I think maybe I want to pick your brains and get your thoughts. What do you do that is helpful when you're feeling stuck? So when you're feeling stuck with OCD or moving forward in life, or stuck on something that's very triggering, or anxiety, or even depression for that matter. But when you're feeling stuck, what helps you move forward? So this is my question to you all. Give me some awesome suggestions of things that really help you all when hey, Jane from LA, that you all do when you're stuck, either mentally changing a mind frame. Is it tools and skills? Is it getting into something? What do you find helpful? People help me get through. I think that's very brave, honestly. I know for me, when I'm struggling, I tend to retreat in and go inward, much like I guess I'm a turtle that just like puts his head in his shell. So and then I kind of remember much later that, oh yeah, there's people that you can lean on, and support systems. So having a community and people is definitely really helpful, Carol. So good call on that. Um, Pausing, guided meditation, calling a recovering friend if I have that awareness, energy. Absolutely, Ashley. I totally agree with that. Knowing that moving forward is helpful. Absolutely. I think exercise, agreed. Going for a run. I kick myself in the buttocks. Otherwise, I know it will get worse. Do you physically kick yourself, Deirdre? I don't want to see that. Katie wrote, consider why I'm willing to stick with all of the ick, thinking really specifically about the values of what values I'm choosing, OCD, especially you. Liz wrote, help a friend or family member give back. These are great. Betsy, think of past successes. If I was able to do that, then I should be able to do this. Keep going. For my son, it's not about people as he has social anxiety. It's a brisk walk while listening to music. Refocus and watch a silly cartoon, journaling. We should just make a list of these. Like if if you're struggling, screen capture these comments and just Deirdre's double jointed. All right, Deirdre, we all expect a video of you kicking yourself in the buttocks. I always sound like Forrest Gump when I'm buttocks. Yeah, just do a giant screen cap of this, because these are all great suggestions on how to move forward when you're really struggling. Saw a question from Grace, and you thought I skipped it, Grace, but oh no. I did not. And then I'll weigh in on sort of my sort of to-dos when I feel stuck. Grace at 7:08 p.m. By the way, Grace, awesome meeting you at the conference. You did not disappoint. You were fantastic and loved your energy. So anyway, Grace at 7:08 p.m. What are some coping skills that you guys turn to when you're emotionally heightened during flashbacks, panic attacks, etc.? Yeah, for sure. This is a great question. So I'll just get right to something concrete that I like to go to. If I'm really struggling, I mean, if there are flashbacks related to PTSD or panic attacks related to anxiety or OCD, and I feel myself very dysregulated, um, I'll go and grab a couple ice cubes and put them in my hand. It really helps with grounding, and you can really do this with a few different things, but essentially it's called ice cubes. I learned it actually in residential when I would dysregulate often. I haven't done it in a while, but even if you're not that dysregulated, candidly, just to kind of, bring your mind from here just to a very specific focal point, but you just take two ice cubes and put them in your palm of your hand and just hold them. Typically, you want to hold them over the sink because they start to melt, it turns out. But honestly, the pain from the cold starts to bring your attention back to the present moment. And for me, it kind of snaps me out of whatever I'm stuck on to a certain extent, especially if I'm feeling a bit frantic. And even been known to bring my stress down, the anxiety down a few notches as well, and allows me to help me use my skills and tools to get a little bit more grounded. I mean, some other good coping skills, Grace, are like the five senses. So just taking a moment and observing the colors around you, what you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste. You don't taste anything per se, but, in your mouth, what you feel, just feeling the ground beneath you and kind of going through and rooting yourself in the present is really, really helpful. And then, even Eric said, watching it, refocus and watching a silly cartoon. What can you get into that is meaningful to you? And are you willing to do that meaningful thing, even though you're feeling uncomfortable or you're having flashbacks or even a panic attack? What are you willing to do? So those are some immediate things that come to mind. Great question, Grace. Beth wrote listening to music, watching my crabs. Absolutely. Let's see here. 7:10 p.m. This is Susan. Hi, Susan. My husband's son and I spent 2020 in total isolation due to COVID-19. My OCD and my husband and son both being immunocompromised. 2021 was better. And once we were vaccinated, but still quite homebound. I'm still struggling being out and about, but I'm doing it. Hopefully it will get easier. Lots of rituals for getting clean when get home. Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you sharing that, Susan. I think that COVID has created a lot of stress and anxiety for lots of folks. Obviously, without OCD, let alone with OCD. If you have OCD and your OCD attaches to a myriad of things, along with having immunocompromised family members, it can get intense. And I think that it's very easy for people to say, "Oh, we'll just follow the CDC guidelines. OCD will never be satisfied." I think that extra responsibility of having family in your house and wondering if you're doing the right thing and doing enough to keep them safe and so forth and so on. It can feel tricky. OCD, can definitely get you mired in the weeds. I know you didn't ask a question, but if I may, first of all, I think it's awesome that you're getting out and about, and I'm sure it's still a struggle, and that's okay that it is. I don't think that it, I try not to have an expectation that it should get easier. Hopefully it will, as you find routine and as better treatments and preventatives come to pass. But I think, having a husband and a son that are both immunocompromised, I think being very careful is very key for you, and that's okay. I would try to look at, though, even if you don't do it, I spoke on the phone this last week with somebody that was struggling who I met at the conference, and we talked a lot about little wins. And I started challenging this idea of this person was going to residential in 6 to 8 weeks and didn't really want to do anything until they got there. So didn't want to really resist or fight the OCD and didn't feel like they could without the support. And I started suggesting, can we start identifying opportunities where we might have an opportunity to fight the OCD? So even if we don't take an action, recognize that moment where I'm choosing OCD or I'm not choosing OCD and I'm choosing a value. Susan, I think that if you've had OCD treatment, I think, you know, you might be looking at opportunities to do exposures, and in reality, you're living the exposure. In which case, really, it's just about you functioning, in life and how you can function successfully in life, understanding that you're already living the exposure, and there's probably nothing more to do in terms of making yourself anxious and exposing yourself. So then, making a list of guidelines that you can follow and guidelines that your family is comfortable with. And I think starting there is potentially a good place. Talk to your husband and son, see what they're comfortable with. Um, if you don't need to overprotect them, if they feel that that's more than appropriate, then chances are that's maybe you satisfying your OCD, and maybe that's a good place to start with. See if what you're doing aligns with what they want, and if it does, great, that's fantastic. Then if what they want, and if what they want, you're going above and beyond that, maybe that's a place to scale back. But it can definitely be a family conversation. But to the point, little wins are really important, and so you know the fact that you're out and about still struggling is better than not being out at all. And maybe you'll get out and about and struggle a little less as days go on. But I'd be curious to know if you've had a conversation with them, and then like how much beyond your accommodating your OCD, beyond what they feel comfortable wanting from you as you attempt to keep them safe during this time. So great comment. Thank you. Lori at 7-Eleven wrote, my heart, well, she's not at 7-Eleven, that's the time. My harp teacher used to tell me, when you get stuck and don't know what to do in life, don't do anything. Just sit and listen. Something always points the way. Another streetcar always comes along. I sit and think of the ocean. The tide goes out and comes back in. That's kind of a nice meditation right there. Your harp teacher was wise. And now you owe us a harp concert, but that's great. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Grace wrote at 7-12. I don't know if this is before I said it. I've heard the ice cube thing before, but I've also heard that you shouldn't replace emotional pain with physical pain. I'm not a doctor. I can't speak to whether in 2010 when I first learned it, it's since been deemed archaic. It's not, the intent of that specifically is not to replace emotional pain with physical pain. It is not the equivalent of, hurting yourself or cutting yourself or something to release that emotion. The idea of the cold really, the numbness that the ice provides is a pain, but it's also not. It's just a discomfort, and so it's really about pulling your focus away from what you're experiencing and into the present moment. So I wouldn't consider it a replacement for emotional with physical pain. I wouldn't even consider it physical pain. It's just discomfort and really just an opportunity to bring you back to the present. But I appreciate that thought. It's interesting. And no, I definitely wouldn't replace emotional pain with physical pain. It's really just about present mindedness. Captain Cass, who I just for some reason thought it said gas, but I can't see apparently with glasses. When using pain, cold, or other grounding techniques, how do you make they aren't or don't become compulsions? Great question, right? I think anything can become a compulsion. I think that we have to rely on our own skills and tools to recognize when those skills and tools become compulsive. If every time I get an unwanted thought, I go meditate, that meditation is compulsive, where once it was, an effective coping mechanism or skill and tool. Same with really anything else in life. So we kind of have to assess when we have our skills and tools, when we're using them, how we're using them, and what we're using them for. And so the answer is, it's all about balance. You can always, go way over, and anything beneficial can become compulsive, just like anything healthy can become unhealthy in large quantities. So, I think that when we have to look at grounding techniques, those grounding techniques are used for a certain amount of time to bring you back to the present, but then your goal is to re-engage in life. And so, what were you doing before you engaged in grounding techniques? Why are you engaging in grounding techniques? And then what are you hoping to gain from those grounding techniques? You should not be trying to gain, I feel great and life is awesome. If you're doing a grounding technique to help lower the discomfort in a down to a place, or the dysregulation down to a place where you feel better equipped to manage it, so you can engage in value-driven behavior and then go back to that value-driven behavior, even feeling discomfort, then you're doing it right. If you're quickly turning to these grounding techniques in an effort to not feel the discomfort, to not feel the emotional distress, to not feel the anxiety, right? If we're using these to get rid of, then that's probably more of a compulsive behavior. At the end of the day, these tools are meant to use in conjunction with other tools and really just to be able to continue to engage in life in meaningful ways. So hopefully that helps. Caption. I said captain. It's been so. If just to be honest, as I always am, if my words are fumbly or my thoughts are a little disjointed, it's been a really long couple of weeks or 3 weeks. I've been very overwhelmed with work, and as I'm sure many of you have, we all have a lot on our plate. By no means complaining, feel very blessed, but days are long, and so I'm willing to come out and maybe not be the most eloquent or funny or smart, and just spend quality time with you all. But if I sound a little wonky, that's the reason. But hopefully you'll stick by me anyway. Patricia at 713 asked, have you ever felt paranoid during your OCD journey, thinking that some people are talking behind your back, etc.? Yeah, I feel like I felt that way before OCD. Yeah, I mean, I think definitely. I think that's. I don't know that you necessarily need OCD to worry that people are talking behind your back or to be concerned about that, Patricia. But I definitely think there are elements of paranoia that are parts of OCD, and part of that is that those pieces of what do people think think about me? What if they said something about me? What if they said something bad about me? What if I said something bad about them and then they overheard me and then they're talking about? I definitely relate to a lot of those type of things. And so, I mean, yes to that question, for sure. I think elements of it have nothing to do with OCD, but our OCD can definitely latch on to pieces of that and think that OCD has an amazing way of making you feel like you're the most important person on earth, and that's pretty powerful to be the most important person on earth. Meaning, oh my gosh, I let the elevator close on that woman 4 days ago. Oh God, I feel terrible. What does she think about me? She probably thinks I'm a horrible person that I let that happen. I mean, I had plenty of time to press the button, and oh, that's terrible. Probably that woman hasn't thought about you till just after the elevator doors close. But again, OCD is really effective at making us believe that we are the most important people in the world, where everybody continues to think about all the terrible things we may or may not have done or said. And that is the only thing. They are not eating, they are not sleeping, they are not taking care of their own families. They are simply cursing us as we have wronged them in some way. So yeah, OCD can be definitely take on some of that, but I think that's completely normal. And I think lots of people worry about that too that don't have OCD. So appreciate your comment, Patricia. It's good to see you. Meg wrote, I have emetophobia, fear of throwing up, and my anxiety shows up as nausea. I find that absolutely nothing helps when I feel nauseous because it's so real. I'm so convinced I'll get sick because it's so real. Do you have advice what to do here? I relate to this. So in high school, which was 140 years ago, my anxiety manifested as dizziness and nausea. And I too had emetophobia. And thus it was a vicious cycle. When I would get nauseous, I was afraid I was going to throw up. So I would get even more nauseous, and it became a vicious cycle, as you so illustrated. The reality of it is that first, and this is part logic based, which therapists may or may not agree with, but just recognizing that my anxiety manifests in that way was helpful. Not so much to prove that I may or may not be sick, but to recognize that for the most part, day in, day out, if I was experiencing anxiety or that I was nauseous or dizzy, that, most likely it was anxiety of some sort, and I could recognize that. The overarching theme here is, so I relate to that very much so. And at the end of every day, when it would start to sort of go away, I'd be like, oh my gosh, that was anxiety. Okay. Anxiety equals nausea. And then the next day I'd get nauseous and forget that completely and think I was going to throw up. So I'm sure you can relate to that cycle. But with that, I think at the end of the day, it's this embracing the uncertainty. I think emetophobia is a tricky subtype, in the sense that it's hard to do ERPs around, at least for me, because if I knew someone's trying to make me, it was about illness, being sick. So if somebody was trying to make me throw up, then who cares? I'm not sick, so I don't care as much. But at the end of the day, it's just about the willingness to let it happen, and not realizing that we don't have the control over, maybe the control over whether we will or we won't. So I think by reading your statement, I find that absolutely nothing helps. The question then becomes, stop trying to do things that help make it go away. If we can recognize that's your anxiety, which you have that insight, then the next step becomes, am I willing to feel nauseous and go about my day anyway? Much like exposure response prevention, over time, you start to won't care about it as much, if at all, because day will go by after day will go by, and you'll continue to do important things in your life, and you'll continue to be nauseous and do them. And of course, nobody wants to feel nauseous and do your daily routines, and nobody's saying you have to, but the first approach is to really just be okay not being okay, or be okay not feeling okay. So recognize that, this nausea is probably anxiety. It may not be, I don't know, but I'm going to keep doing what I need to do. And if things happen, they happen, and I'll address them when they cross that bridge. And I'm not going to try to do anything specifically that helps or tries to get rid of it, other than live my life in a value-driven way. And over time, you should habituate if you do that consistently. Now, that isn't to say that one day you may get sick. I had food poisoning at the OCD conference in 2016, and I was really sick, and it did not sit well with me. I don't mean just the illness, but my emetophobia. I brought up PTSD. I was just a mess. The good news is, and I was in a building with 1,000 therapists, so it's like if I was going to have a little bit of a break, that was the place to do it. But all kidding aside, I relate. It's uncomfortable. It's terrible, but I lived through it, and I've gone about my life. And did I have anxiety the next time I stayed in a hotel room, or the next time I went to Chicago, or the next time? Sure, absolutely. But we just have to chalk those things up to sitting with the uncertainty. Isn't about proving that these things won't happen. It's about simply identifying that we don't have control over them. Most of the time, it is OCD. It isn't going to happen. So we're just going to roll with that, with the expectation that hopefully not, but it may, and we'll cross that bridge when we do. And most of the time, we cross it. We have incredible inner strength, those of us with OCD. So hopefully that helped, Meg. But I totally relate. Jelly Bean, I missed you at the conference. It's been a minute. I hope you're well. I won't reveal your real name. Shannon Chai, it's good to see you, Shannon. So great to see you at the conference. I hope you're done with your traveling. You've been all over the place. Hi, Anne. Good to see you. Jane likes the idea of doing nothing. I do too. QWERTY Rob, when I'm having chain OCD or one obsession after another, I repeat self-talk, such as slow your thinking or relax your thoughts. I think self-talk is good. I think this idea of awareness is important. There's a big difference between, hey, Chad, good to see you. I think there's a big difference between, thought stopping or thought suppression, and simply recognizing, take a beat, just take a beat, just slow your roll, and jumping into meditation at points like that is really helpful. And just kind of acknowledging, let your thoughts be there, and kind of bringing the pace down. And then, at the same time, if you're willing to, the key here is to also be willing to coexist with the thoughts and the feelings. So as you engage in skills and tools and behaviors and things like that, that help, also the intention is to not get rid of, but to just simply coexist with. So I'm glad self-talk helps for you. And I think that, self-talk to a certain extent is important to have insight and recognize what you're experiencing, and then engaging in meaningful skills to help you move forward. So, is it Schuyler or Schuler? I think it's Schuler. In an IOCDF town hall last year, there was a mention of the ice technique. I think there's a calming physiological response that occurs with something like holding ice cubes. Yeah, I would agree. Any tips on how to stay motivated when you're in therapy? Great question. 7:23 p.m. And I can. Oh, sorry. I got into Q&A mode, but I'm happy to continue on letting you in on my sort of secrets for feeling stuck. I also have a funny story to tell you. Don't let me forget. Funny story. Any tips on how to stay motivated when you're in therapy? So motivation is difficult in therapy, and I don't think anybody should stigmatize themselves, not have self-compassion around therapy. It's not easy, and it's also really tiring. And I think that fatigue, along with that intensity, and it's hard to stay motivated. So I think if you're lacking motivation or feel it hard to find the motivation to want to go continue with therapy day in and day out, first of all, you're not alone. Second of all, totally normal. And third of all, what are some tips? So the first tip is therapy doesn't have to be graceful or pretty. There's no rhyme or rules to therapy. There's no law that says you have to do it a certain way, meaning obviously the therapy is the therapy, but beyond that, you are not held up to some standard. I know. So number one is it's okay to not be motivated and still do therapy. It's okay to be tired and still do therapy. It's okay to be depressed and still do therapy. Do the therapy. That's the number one. Number two is how do you stay motivated? Identifying what your goals are. And I don't mean what your goals for therapy are, but why are you doing therapy in the first place? What are you losing? What do you have to lose by not doing therapy? What values are you trying to attain? What life are you trying to get back? What have you lost? Coming back to those questions in the middle of therapy were always really helpful for me, to help determine why I was doing what I was doing, why I was putting myself through pain and discomfort, why I'm asking myself to sit through anxiety and causing anxiety. And, why? Well, the reason why is because what I was doing before, which were compulsions, stopped working. They weren't working. And in fact, my world was becoming very, very small, and my ability to live life was becoming impossible. And the things that I was doing were no longer working. And in fact, they never really worked. They just kind of held off what inevitably became the inevitable. So in order to stay motivated, I had to hold in my head a very clear picture of what it was I was trying to achieve, which was a life that I didn't really know. And what I mean by that is I don't remember a time that I didn't have OCD. A lot of people say, I just want my life back. I want where I was before OCD. And if you have that experience, that's your journey. And that's fantastic because you got to have a goalpost of what you want to get back to. As far back as I can remember, I was always having obsessions and compulsions. And so I don't know that I really knew what I was trying to achieve. I just knew that I wanted to achieve something more than laying in bed every day, completely freaking out and having my parents feed me. It just wasn't something I wanted anymore. And even though I felt helpless and hopeless at times, holding that close and having people support me that could hold that close and help show me, hey, here's what you're striving for. Here's what you're going for. Here's the goal of all of this. Being on something like this, Marvel, seeing people that have been through treatment and therapy and seeing that it worked for them is incredibly motivating. And even if you think, that's not me, I'll never be there, my situation is different. I had all those thoughts too. Hearing that it does work, it can work. And therapy isn't a straight line. Like life is not just this straight line up. It's this, and there's holes and ponds and sharks and tornadoes and and bad presidents and all kinds of stuff. So I think lowering our expectation, in other words, let's resize our expectation to an expectation of my goal is to not let OCD rule my life. My goal is to not let OCD dictate my choices and my function. My goal is to live a value-driven life where I get to make the choices, where I, the individual, insert name, get to make choices for myself. And if that's your goal, then that is the only goal you have. And I would choose that as your expectation. How quickly you get there, what that looks like. Everyone's on their own journey. We can't compare. We can't look at somebody else in therapy and go, they did it faster, they did it slower. It's all a marathon. It's not a sprint. So those are just some initial tips for how I stay motivated, and I know how other people stay motivated in therapy. And it's also a great question. I'm sure people are loading the comment thread. If anybody else has some great tips for how you stay motivated in therapy, I would love to hear them. So thank you, your local Marvel fan. I appreciate that question. Katie wrote, "Wait, you're welcome, Patricia. Wait, are you telling me that my OCD is wrong and that everyone doesn't spend 24/7 thinking about how much I've somehow ruined everything in the world?" It turns out that no, people don't. And yeah. Although, wouldn't it be amazing to be proven wrong? Like, just that one time you run to that person 8 months later and they've been like, "God, I haven't been able to stop thinking about that time you stepped on my foot. You're such an asshole. I haven't been able to work. I haven't been able to sleep. I've just been," and you'd be like, "You know what? I know a good OCD therapist." So, that's probably the only chance of somebody else obsessing about what you're obsessing about. Let me keep scrolling down here. Chad wrote, "Just moved back to our house after the fire, and I found that my checking has been a bit crazy. Got to check everything over and over because what if causes another fire?" That's a difficult situation, Chad, and I think that's extremely common, and that's definitely more to dive into there. But yeah, when life meets OCD, which it happens, it's coincidental. So when life meets OCD, it can definitely make it more challenging. But it also doesn't mean that we want to give in to our OCD either. So give yourself a lot of grace and compassion, and a lot of self-compassion and love as you kind of move forward and try to figure out, everything is going to seem so much more scary now. So try to figure out what works for you, and you don't have to go back to exactly where you were. You can start small and start to slowly challenge yourself again, but it will get easier. Thank you, Skyla. Skyla posted a good article on emetophobia from 2017. So feel free to read that if you have questions. Somebody asked about no CD. What do I think of no CD? I mean, I think everybody has their own experiences with treatment. The doctor that I went to has, 6 Yelp that saved my life, has 6 Yelp reviews, like saying they're the devil. So I think, if you have trouble accessing resources and treatment, and you need it covered by insurance, I think they're a really good option. But in terms of my own personal opinion, I don't have one, as I would never give my opinion about anyone or any one treatment or therapy provider. I think, it's not a one size fits all, and different people respond to different things. I think ultimately, if something helps you, then that's a good thing, or a therapist helps you, I should say. Let's see here. Scrolling down, everybody's saying hi to each other. This is great. You're so welcome, Marvel. Did I catch up with your questions? Is this a quiet group? Just kidding. Thank you, Anne. Anne wrote, "You have achieved so much by helping so many in such a meaningful way." I mean, I am no. Thank you. I should probably just accept the compliment. I'm learning too. Jane Taylor at 729 said, "What about allowing thoughts?" Jane, elaborate on that, because that probably referred to something that I was talking about above, and I don't remember what it was. Perhaps telling your brain. Oh, gotcha. Okay. 731, perhaps telling your brain what creative thoughts. Yeah, I think so. This whole idea of OCD thinking, is I mean, Kim Quinlan says it great. It's like you can invite it in, but don't serve it tea. I mean, there's a lot of meditative practices that talk about like noticing the leaves float by on the river, or noticing the clouds float by in the sky. I mean, the thoughts are the same way, and you can say, "Oh, that's very clever, OCD. I see you, and I give you 2 points for creativity. I'm not going to listen to you," right? So you can also say, "What creative thoughts? My OCD is so creative. That is wonderful. I'm still not going to listen to you." So I think, how you identify, I think for a lot of folks, identifying to their OCD sort of in the third person, giving it a persona, if you will. And I've adamantly said since the beginning that my OCD has the voice of Bernie Sanders. I've specifically chosen that voice, so I can hear it very clearly. It doesn't sound like anything close to anything else. So when Bernie is talking to me in my head, I'm like, "Oh, that's OCD. I hear you, Bernie. Keep running." So you can absolutely recognize your OCD thoughts, and and say, that's clever. That is creative. Way to go, OCD. I see you tried to put one over on me, and nice try this time, but no, thank you. So yeah, Jane, hopefully I gathered what you were hinting at correctly. Mike at 737 wrote, motivation therapy while you're in therapy, pointer. Why have I come this far and challenged as much as I have just to back out of this now? What it is on the other side? There might be another side to this. Mike always comes with the great sentiments, and I totally agree with you. We've all come from a journey. Even if you're sitting there watching this, going, "I'm not happy with where I am," or "I'm not happy with the progress," or maybe I haven't made any progress. I honestly believe that wherever you are now, you have new knowledge, new information, and you're further along on your journey. So, what can you take from your journey and put it into your future as you move forward? And so, you're here, you're watching this. Maybe you're in therapy, maybe you're trying to get in therapy, maybe you're stuck, but you've already started the climb. Doesn't matter if you've slipped, doesn't matter if you've fallen, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter any of it. It's like what you do now, what you do in these next moments that count. And it's not easy. It's not easy. I mean, I always say this with the utmost humility because it's easy to talk about. It's hard to do. And as I alluded to in the beginning of this stream, the summer has been probably more difficult than it's been for a while for me. I've had some physical stuff, as I've talked about in various streams, that have popped up that has really triggered my OCD in a way that it hasn't triggered it before, because real things are happening to my body, and then I'm wondering why. And they're valid to go to doctors and so forth and so on, but still my OCD latches on and goes, okay, but they have to be wrong, but there's got to be more tests, but maybe there's something I should do, or maybe I should pay closer attention, but this is serious this time. So, but to Mike's point, like, why have I come this far and challenged as much as I have to back down now? I think that I've done a really good job this summer. That doesn't mean that I haven't compulsed. That doesn't mean that it's been pretty. Katie will tell you it has not been pretty. Don't tell them. But it doesn't matter. I think if I look at my entire summer as a whole, I look at it and go, yeah, I definitely had some harder times. And I even had some moments I wasn't proud of. But I did some really cool things this summer, in spite of how I felt, in spite of, having things happen with my body and being afraid to travel or being nervous to travel or being, I did everything I was supposed to do and then some. And sometimes it wasn't pretty, and sometimes it was beautiful, and sometimes it was everything in between. And I think that I have to give myself a lot of credit, although I'm not quick to do that, and I also have to give my support system a lot of credit for helping me, push through, and obviously Katie for supporting me when I'm not that pretty. So my point in saying all of that is I always want you all to know, whether you're here for the first time or you're here for the 50th time, is that, I'm here right along with you. I never want you to think with these insights comes this golden shield against OCD where I don't ever feel its wrath. I'm very grateful for the life that I have. I always say that. And I'm very grateful for the level of wellness I have achieved, and that I get to enjoy in life, and the fact that I get to experience joy in life, among all the other emotions that life comes with. So, I am really at peace with this idea of OCD is chronic. Having been completely bedridden and unable to function, I'll take functioning and messy, or even functioning messy and still even enjoying a little bit. It's okay. It's okay that I have to fight a little harder right now. It'll come back around, to where I wasn't. At the end of the day, I'm doing new things and challenging myself in new ways, and with that, OCD comes. So that's understandable. So, but I always want you to know that I speak from a place of experience, and experiencing in real time. So I never want to sound like a guru that has all the answers. I have all the answers, but it doesn't. No, I'm kidding. I don't have all the answers. I see the comment thread filling up, so let's continue on. Caption Am I even saying that right, Captain? While we're asking questions, I often struggle with rumination, trying to figure logic out as a compulsion, but it's hard to avoid since it's like trying to not think about thinking. Any tips? Yeah, it is. I mean, the whole idea of, rumination and trying to figure out and logic is, well, first of all, not thinking is like, don't think of the pink elephant, you think of the pink elephant. I think we definitely get ourselves caught up in a logic trap. And thank you, Shannon, for your comment. I'm going to read it in 1 second. I haven't read it yet, but I always get excited when you leave little kernels of wisdom. The biggest thing we complicate therapy. Individuals with OCD have above average, I'm just repeating Dr. Grayson, has above average intelligence, above average creativity, a vivid imagination. So we're really smart. And because we're really smart, we oftentimes think we can outthink OCD, which is where we try to employ logic. Problem with that is OCD is most of the times, if not all the times, illogical, which means that we're just stuck in an endless loop of trying to figure out something that you can't figure out. Hence the rumination, hence the compulsion. And not only try to figure something out you can't figure out, but try to finally get a sensation of relief. So what do we do? Well, first of all, we have to let go of logic and understand that OCD is illogical and therefore I can't apply logic to it. So I am going to stop that. The second piece is the uncertainty piece, which is, rumination and trying to figure things out, and logic isn't going to get me where I need to go. And I think part of your comment is that it almost feels automatic. Your brain just starts to go, and you have to loosen that. It takes time. You don't just like, oh, well, I'm not gonna, it's illogical. Never ruminate again. It is an exercise that you have to do every day. And over time, you start to ruminate a little less and a little less, the less you care. My suggestion is some of the grounding techniques that we talked about, coming back to the present moment, is really the key to eliminating rumination. Coming back to the present moment, trying to get back into whatever you're doing. And so the question isn't so much, oh my gosh, I ruminated this much. It's how many times did I try to come back to the present? And if you did it 5,000 times in a day, that's a win. That's a successful day. Even if you were ruminating and compulsing and trying to figure it out, the majority of it, every time you kind of popped out and gained insight and objectivity and realized what you were doing and how you were involved, and you could come back to the moment even for a second, that's a win. That's a win over it. And so you have to recognize that and go, okay, I fought that then. And we kind of have this all or nothing thinking about like, well, I only did that 3 times. Well, you did it 3 times. That's 3 more times that you did it the day before when you fully gave in. So, it's not so much trying not to think about it. It's almost being willing to think about it and then coming back anyway to the present and being willing to let your brain have a conversation. I remember, when I was doing acceptance commitment therapy and I was trying to get to the gym. No, I was trying to go for a walk. Dare I go to a gym, please? I was going for a walk and I was talking to my my therapist at the time, and I said, man, I'm working and I just can't get outside. He's like, well, why can't you get outside? I'm like, because, part of me is screaming like, Ethan, get up, go for a walk, move your body, 30 minutes a day. It's not a big deal. And the other part of me is going, you got to work, you got to answer emails. You can't let these sit there. You're going to lose your job. You're going to lose money. You got to do this. You got to, and those two things are arguing back and forth. And my therapist said, well, can't you just let those two things argue and just watch and be like, okay, I'm going to let you guys argue while I go for a walk. And I was like, wow, that's kind of which is why I love acceptance commitment therapy so much. Cause it's like, yeah, I guess I can let my brain be noisy and argue while I move my body. So it's like, can you move your body and let your brain try to figure things out and then try to come back to the present as much as possible? Bernie does not know that he is the voice to my OCD. But if anybody here knows Bernie Sanders and wants to connect me, I'd be happy to tell him. Let's read Shannon's words of wisdom. I think they're words of wisdom. 7:42 p.m. The motivation question I ask all my peer clients to answer initially in our session is, why do I want to get to a place where OCD does not adversely affect my life? I give them a hint by asking, who is important to you? What is important to you? You and your quality of life are at the top of that list. I bring them back to that answer all the time. It's a powerful tool in the moment when OCD is screaming at you to give it what it wants. I love that, Shannon. It was great, Shannon. So hopefully that makes sense to everyone, which is it's all about, you and your quality of life are at the top of the list, and you and your quality of life and OCD can't exist simultaneously. They're mutually exclusive. So it's either you or it's OCD. You get to pick. And that's what's kind of neat is you're in control. You get to pick. I mean, we talk about all these things that we don't have control over. Like, we don't have control over most things, but we do have control over whether OCD, once we have the skills and tools, we have control over whether we let OCD rule our life or not. And so that's really great. Thank you for sharing that, Shannon. It was great to see you at the conference as well. Shannon Shai, also awesome. I don't know the link to Shannon's website, but a great peer support specialist and all around great guy and great friend of the IOCDF. He's a former board president and served his country, his keynote in 2010. So thanks, Shannon, for being here. Appreciate you. My local Marvel fan at 744 wrote, my OC rituals have been making it really hard to go to bed, and I'm trying to go to bed earlier. But when I do, I get in bed earlier. I don't fall asleep until the bedtime I've been going to bed. So any ideas to help this? So you're saying, are you trying to go to bed earlier because you'll ritualize and so you get to sleep at that time? Or you're trying to go to bed earlier just because you want to sleep earlier and you need more sleep? That's my question. But bedtime hygiene is really important, especially with OCD. And I've talked about it in the past. I'm going to get to some of these questions, but we can talk about that more as well. Oh, thank you, Patricia. Kaylee, Ethan, I'm very familiar with your OCD story. PD, your ICDF keynote was part of motivation group at OCDI. I related to this part about being like you're failing residential treatment, etc. Did you ever go back to residential treatment after finding your motivation, values, and independence? I asked because my OCD specialist thinks I need more intensive treatment. Returning to residential in Boston. I know my therapist is correct. Is really triggered. Okay, I get what you're saying. By the way, OCD is the worst, as I'm sure you're familiar with. Okay, so, well, first of all, thank you for the kind words. I have heard a rumor that they show my keynote at the OCD Institute. I don't get any money for that, and I'm highly disappointed. Listen, here's the deal. Residential is tricky. Residential is hard. I think that we put a lot of pressure on ourselves in residential. We get there and we go, okay, this is our chance. This is our chance to get better. Like, this is the place. It's where everyone goes if you're sick or if you're really sick. And I know I did that. I would suggest a reframe on residential, which is, residential is not a punishment. And I know it's not hard to say that. And I think from what I'm reading, and I just read your comments very quickly, you didn't fail residential. There's no failing this. There's just your journey and what it looks like. And I know, I can't tell you how many people I know that went to residential and had to go back a second, a third, a fourth time. But each time they got so much more out of it because of what they knew they needed to do the first time. They got a chance to do it the second time, where they realized what they were missing or not engaged. I mean, if you think about that, if you go back to residential, knowing what you knew or knowing what you didn't know the first time, how much are you going to get out of it that time? It's such a wonderful opportunity. And we have to look at it just like any other disease or disorder. If you needed a second round of chemo 6 months after, being in remission, would you go get it? Are you failing? Are you a failure because you need? No. And I know people get tired of the analogies, and I know that, you decide whether compulsions. Yes, all of the above. But at the end of the day, residential is a resource. And at the end of the day, and this is, at the end of the day, research and science has failed the OCD community. What I mean by that is we are so far behind other disorders in terms of options for treatment. Same medications since the mid-1990s. There's been advances in therapy modalities, and then tons of research studies. And what I'm saying right now may not be popular, but the reason among clinicians, you may hate me for saying that, but I'm saying that for a very specific reason. And I'm saying that because it's so important that you know that you never fail treatment. You never fail therapy. It's in fact science and research that has failed us. and I don't even, these are not my concepts. These are not my ideas. A brilliant CEO of a pharmaceutical company I interviewed one time, and he was talking about this, and he said, I talked to him about my own having failed 10 SSRIs, not 10, but I've been on all the SSRIs. I said, I failed those drugs. I felt like a failure. I felt like a lab rat. And he turned to me and he said, you know what? You didn't, we failed you. You didn't feel us. And I just broke into tears when he said that, because it was so powerful to hear a psychiatrist and a scientist and a researcher say, we have to do better for you. Not all therapies work for everyone. So we need more therapies. There's no such thing as treatment refractory. We just need to find what those treatments are. And so, maybe that's all weird coming from somebody who isn't a researcher or scientist. But I say that because I want you to know that there is no failing in this process. There's only learning. And, I would argue that if you went back, you would go with the knowledge of what you took away the last time and add it to what you know now, and absolutely crush it. And do great, So, I didn't go back to residential. If you know my story, kind of like my life on the streets and therapy and stuff like that, I haven't needed to go back to residential, but I can tell you that if I ever did, I would. And I would probably feel stigmatized too, but everybody would hopefully everybody would tell me what I'm telling you, which is treatment. It's medicine. It's okay. And, we're not failing. We're not failing this process, access to treatment. The fact that it's hard to access isn't our fault. The fact that it's so hard to get good treatment, that's not our fault. Therapy, the fact that there's so little access to treatment, it's not our fault. And it sucks. And it's why we advocate. It's why the IOCDF works so hard to make, resources and education and treatment and, and trainings and everything just so accessible. And I think we're making a dent. I really do. I know we are. I know we're making a difference. And I think that's just my long-winded way of saying, I understand the stigma that you may apply to yourself when thinking about, I have to go back because I didn't do good enough. I didn't do it right. I didn't surrender enough. Maybe you weren't in the right place. Maybe it wasn't your moment. Maybe you got as far as you could in that time, and now you're ready to go further. So try a harsh reframe on that. And if you have an opportunity to go back and you feel you need to go back, and they feel you need to go back, there is no shame. Quite the opposite. There's a ton of bravery in that. And if you think about, what is 2 months to get, your life back, and or be able to live the life that you envision living for yourself, I would say that's a worthy investment. That was quite a diatribe, but we're just about out of time. I just want to quickly scroll down, make sure I'm not missing anything. Sorry, just reading quickly. Thank you, Betsy, for the own insight onto my own OCD. Betsy at 740 AM wrote, Ethan, you said that you were trying new things, maybe traveling more. You raised the bar. No wonder you're feeling more anxiety, perhaps. A million question marks. Yeah, you nailed me, Betsy. I appreciate that. That's good advice. Thank you. And by the way, this conversation is always a two-way street. So please feel free to, like, as Betsy did, give me suggestions. I mean, you give me just as much as, if not more than, what I hope to give you. So, Tom is cut to check. Oh, perfect. I don't know if, Skyla, you saw, but Shannon, wrote his link, which is, here, I'll just copy and paste this real quick in the private chats. Nope, that didn't work. Anyway, I'm stalling. I apologize. All right, it's 8 o'clock, so let's go ahead. I'm going to leave you with some final thoughts, actually. That's what I'm going to do. but let me just quickly put this in the chat. Okay, there we go. That's Shannon Shy's website. I agree, Felice. We do need to talk about anger and rage. And that's a good thing to talk about. I got you too, Kayla. I appreciate that. So things to leave you with. Well, first of all, we'll be back 2 weeks from tonight. Second of all, sorry it's been a month. Thank you for posting that, Skylar. I appreciate it. Yeah, Shannon Chai, check out his website. Also a great book, Turning Points. Sean Shinnick, Draw Your Monster, did the artwork for it. So great overall resource. So check it out. No, I always appreciate this time with you all. And thank you for showing up. Thank you for being here. Thank you for weighing in. Thank you for being honest and supportive and real. This community is incredible. And I always say that, but I always mean it. And I hope that you get as much from me as I get from you. I'm always open to feedback, criticism, compliments, anything else that you really just feel like talking about. At the end of the day, I always want you to, I always want you to know that you have a friend in this fight, and a friend at the IOCDF, which there are lots of them, but you have a friend with OCD and a friend in this journey. That's the most important thing. That's what my advocacy is about. My advocacy is about, making sure that you all know that you're supported and we're in this together. And so hopefully we can do that for each other and continue on, and we'll just keep doing this and keep having these conversations. So with all of that, I want to thank the IOCDF and Skylar behind the scenes for keeping the lights on. Really need to work on that last phrase. It's pretty lame. So next Tuesday, you can join lead advocate Katie O'Dunn and my fiance not Katie and my fiance. Katie is my fiance. Either way, you'll join Katie O'Dunn for a brand new faith and mental health, faith and OCD roundtable on faith and values at 7 p.m. Eastern. Note, tomorrow's research roundtable has been postponed to Thursday, the 18th at 12 p.m. Eastern. Did you know that the IOCDF has Conference Scholarship Fund? 100% of the donations go towards providing a scholarship for someone to attend the annual OCD conference who otherwise would not be able to go. You can help someone affected by OCD and related disorders attend the 2023 conference in San Francisco by donating to the scholarship fund at iocdf.org/scholarship fund. Creative. That was so snarky of me, wasn't it? But I mean, it's not that creative. I know I didn't tell the funny story, Katie. It's because I couldn't remember the first half of it. So this live stream is one of many. You can see the entire schedule or future streams at iocdf.org/peace of mind. If you want to be notified of when we're going live, you can follow the IOCDF on social media and subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch. We're everywhere. And finally, if you need resources, please visit iocdf.org. Questions, comments, concerns, thoughts. You can actually leave comments and questions at the iocdf.org/peace of mind page if you have suggestions or thoughts or questions on this live stream. There you go. Thank you, Skyla, or any other live stream. And also, if you need anything else, never hesitate to email the IOCDF at info@iocdf.org. Thank you so much for being here. I'm glad we got to all the questions. If I did miss your question, just feel free to email the IOCDF, or you can ask the question in the Peace of Mind, and we'll make sure to get it to me. So thank you for spending your Tuesday evening with me. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe, stay vigilant, feel the feels. Don't let OCD off the hook. And we will see you 2 weeks from tonight. Have a wonderful evening. Good night.